Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday weather outlook for the southern region brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. We're going to start with a map from the U.S. National Phenology Network. It's what's called the Spring Leaf Index Anomaly Map, and it's based off of temperatures, and it's also based off of surveys of basically leaf out, what plants are starting to bud and come out and show leaves. And so we can use this as a gauge to understand how early spring might be compared to average. And right now, when we look at the historical numbers here compared to those numbers, everywhere kind of south of that line I just drew here is already experiencing an early spring. Some locations between 10 and 20 days earlier than normal. What got us there was this pattern. You see, there's been a ridge sitting south of the Aleutian Islands, another ridge sitting south of the Hudson Bay. But to be honest with you, it's this trough that's sitting right here off of Greenland that's really got this whole thing, this whole pattern shaped like this. Such that we're running up a ridge in this area, dives into a trough here, has to come back over this ridge in this region before diving again. So that's been the flow pattern of the jet stream. And a secondary ridge has been developing here in the Caribbean and Western Atlantic over the coming days. And it's just kept redirecting systems like this, lifting them to the northeast, not letting them dig. We can maybe even see it a little bit better here because this is the composite wind anomalies that we've seen so far over the last month or so. And if you just look across this region, those arrows are pointing from the south to the north, indicating the warm air advection that's happening in this region simply due to the way that flow pattern is set up. Now, the consequence of that is it gives us a wide open Gulf of Mexico. And to see a map just like this one shows the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation. And this color bar goes up to 10 inches here. We have a large swath of our southern region stretching from Louisiana and Arkansas up into parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, back over to North Carolina, and all the way down to the Gulf Coast, where in between we see precipitation totals that are 6 to 10 inches just in the last 7 days. And the problem is that pattern's not going anywhere. So starting this morning, so this is starting at 6 a.m. this morning, going all the way into 6 a.m. next Tuesday morning, we're going to continue to add to this because the pattern that got us here is not breaking down anytime soon. So we're looking here, and I'll give you some detailed numbers in a few moments, but we're looking here at another, over the next week, a broad sector of the country grabbing at least an inch of rain, some locations 2 to 3 inches of additional precipitation. If we just ask ourselves why, let's come back to that same feature. The ridge has shifted a bit. It's now sitting here, but a deep trough will be developing in the coming days over Alaska. The trough that's been over Greenland is still well established, which means as the jet stream comes screaming in through this area and dives into the west, it then lifts under that ridge to come under this trough here. So this ridge in place here kind of fed right around Cuba with the heat to build it, just gives us a very active storm track, which keeps this particular region of the country very wet. And so these troughs sweep through, and yeah, they do give us temporary shots at some colder air, but things rebound very quickly. And it appears that at least out through the end of February, we're sticking with this pattern. We would need to see pretty sizable change in Alaska or Greenland to know if March is going to bring us something different. And right now, the models aren't necessarily hinting at that. So if we just say over the next week that follows that, if that pattern stays put, remember the jet stream comes in like this, a lot of moisture transport here, high pressure cell to the south, so it fires the jet in, the subtropical jet meets up with it, and we just keep that area very wet compared to average all the way out through week 2. So this gets you out again till the evening of February 25th, looking only at week 2 precipitation anomalies. So here come the details. We're going to continue to see this region expand in flood risk. But with each trough that dips through, we're going to have enough cold air on the backside to give us the threat for snow in New Mexico, Texas, and then this will stretch up into this direction with time. So we have winter storm warnings out for New Mexico and winter weather advisories out for the northern part of the panhandle of Texas. We're going to take a look at what the precipitation is going to look like here. But major flood fight will be ongoing in this region for the foreseeable future. So here's some numbers. Just looking, starting west and going east, this is total accumulated precipitation through the next 5 days. So this gets us out to Sunday morning. And as we just look at some of these numbers here, widespread 3/4 of an inch to some locally heavier amounts of 2+ inches, depending on where these storms set up. And we'll talk about those storms in a moment. Going east of there, you can see that this part of our southern region, very similar story. We have the risk for severe weather that's really going to be tucked away into this corridor as we move forward throughout this weekend through Wednesday. Thursday, it does shift a bit farther to the east, but because the system is lifting, the severe weather threat diminishes as you get over to the Carolinas. But the main point here is just to see how large of an area we have that's projected to get at least another inch of rain through the end of this week. So that severe weather region, this is valid for the day on Wednesday. The Storm Prediction Center downgraded this just basically upon the wind shear profile because there's going to be plenty of warm, moist, unstable air to use here, but they've taken the enhanced risk out of it, and now we're just down to a large swath of slight risk. Now, that don't let me say that and you think that the severe weather threat has been removed, but as this next storm system takes off, that will be the region I'll be most concerned about. And then we do have marginal risk that slides east on the day on Thursday. Okay, so let's take a look from our high resolution models. This starts off pretty early in the morning, and then let's see the rainfall that we got early in the morning and pause it right here by the time we get to midday. So our next system is emerging midday down here in New Mexico and Arizona. You can see the swirl right here. Now with the cold air that's on the back side of this, New Mexico and parts of Texas are going to be dealing with a mixture of freezing rain in through here. This is this evening, freezing rain changing over to snow, and then all snow back in New Mexico. But the main frontal boundary sticks out ahead of it right here, so you can almost see the front. And that frontal boundary will be the boundary on which this next system is going to attempt to ride. So I just took you from the overnight hours tonight into tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, and you can see that as this system pulls north, we're going to be seeing a line of showers and thunderstorms that pulls through this area in the afternoon on Wednesday and into the evening. So we're expecting a frontal squall line in through this area. Again, it's a change in wind shear profile that's taken the main threat out of this, but it will push through the region before heading on off to the coast by the time we get into early Thursday morning right here. Okay, so on the northern side of this, we could expect through parts of Kansas and Missouri, getting over into Oklahoma, this region right through here, a mixture of very cold rain changing over to some sleet, big heavy, silver dollar snowflakes, and then on the back side of it, much more fine snow. And that boundary is going to be very tricky to forecast. So if you're watching this and you're in Missouri and southern Illinois, there's going to be right here on I-70 a changeover to freezing rain and sleet, and possibly at times some very wet snowflakes. But then this whole system lifts again, and that would just be system number one that we're dealing with. Total snowfall accumulations. Remember, I think that right in through here, this corridor, when you look at these numbers, they could have a mixture of sleet in there, biasing the snowfall numbers a little high. But the potential exists. There's enough liquid content in this to make for some big snowfall amounts, stretching from New Mexico, a narrow corridor, and through the panhandle of Texas, stretching up into Kansas, Missouri, and Illinois. Okay, so let's now switch over to the European model to look out farther so that we can see the next couple of systems after this. So we've discussed this one through Thursday morning. There it is, just pulling on through high pressure cell baseline behind this, and this one's bringing in the cold air. You'll see it in just a few moments, but some coldest air of a winter for some folks, like up here in Illinois and Missouri. Well, as that pulls through, if a high pressure system slides off to the coast, well, the back side of it gives us this nice return flow. And what we end up getting is our next system emerging here as we work our way into Monday of next week, Monday night into Tuesday, and the flow around one high feeds the low that's behind it, and this is again our next chance of rain early next week for the same quarter that's been hit so frequently. Well, that system passes through, and as so many of these do, they just leave a lingering frontal boundary this time of year on which additional showers will show up as we work our way into Wednesday. But then the system stays active. The trough redevelops here. So by the time we get out of, into not next Friday, but Friday the 21st, the models are still hinting at the development of another low pressure system. So we just put this all together and complete the picture with temperatures. It's going to go on a bit of a roller coaster ride, maintaining overall a warm bias across the south as you look out over the next 15 days. But system after system after system keeps bringing in the precip. So the map you've been looking at, this is actual high temperatures in the day today. So already the cold air established in New Mexico and Texas, while the warmth still sits here over the southeast, and it'll be on this frontal boundary right in through here on which we're going to let this next system ride. So let's pause it here, get into Wednesday's high temperatures. Now getting into Thursday, that's when the real cold air comes in behind this system, and it does bring 30s all the way down into the northern part of our southern region, but negative single digits up here in the plains. So this now gets into Friday, which will likely be the coldest day of the week, Friday and Saturday, especially as you get over here to the Carolinas. But watch the rebound. Ready? Here comes Sunday's high temperatures and Monday's high temperatures. You can clearly see the changeover back to what we've been experiencing. A lot of 60s and 70s with 80s in southern Texas and southern Florida. So to finish this up, let's take a look at the next 5 days in terms of temperatures. As we detailed yesterday in the outlook for the next couple of weeks, we talked a lot about what was going on in Alaska. Alaska seems to be the place where the deepest troughs are setting up shop there in Greenland, and as a consequence, the pattern, even though we bring in this cold shot of air this week, pattern goes back over to favoring cooler than average out west. Ridge here over the south, and the flow doing like this in between it, which just is pulling north and not bringing in the colder temperatures. Going all the way out to the 25th of February, we see that pattern hanging on. So what will happen is the jet stream will do this, and that's going to keep this entire section of the country favoring above average temperatures on the whole. I want to give you some new long-range updates as we wrap this one up. This goes from February 20th through March 20th. And we've only seen moderation in the cold out here in the west. We've expanded the region in through here that's going to be experiencing more than likely above average temperatures. And this model's been very consistent. So this looks all the way out into March. And if we could shake this wetter pattern in through here, we would be rapidly planting the next crop on this early season heat. But unfortunately, the February 20th through March 20th time period still carries with it the same pattern, which is doing this. And they meet and take on off like that. So what I'm most worried about at this point is all the flooding, and I expect to see this map continue to move more toward these colors with time as we look at all the river gauges that are here in the Mid-South and the Southeast that are currently showing near or above flood stage. So let's keep an eye on this together, as it is posing a pretty serious threat here to our livelihoods as we crank our way out of February and into March. So with that, I'll wrap it up right here. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.